Hey, this is Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and welcome to the Diecast Graveyard Hearse Build-Off. I'm tackling it with a Lincoln Continental. So Paul over at Diecast Graveyard issued a little bit of a challenge, and he pretty much said, let's build a hearse, but it can't start life off as a hearse. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I kind of hemmed and hawed and thought about it. I pulled out a few castings, and I was kind of undecided whether I was going to go with the Hot Wheels Lincoln or I think that's a Johnny Lightning or an M2. I'm not even sure what it was, but I had it kicking around in my junk pile. But I decided to go with the hard top version. And I think the Lincoln Continental with the slightly ironic suicide doors it was pretty much a good call. It has good lines. It's still square. It's got, to me, it's one of the classic hot rod style muscle car. I mean, you can do so many things with those. I almost had a chance to buy one, and I let it slide through my fingers. I think it had like 30,000 miles on it. Classic story, little old lady. Engine purred like a kitten, but there was a title issue, and I kind of hemmed and hawed, and I ended up losing out. But I digress. So, as with any Outlaw Speed Shop project, I try to envision what it's going to look like once I get the wheels on. So I go into my pile of wheels, and I'm kind of playing around with different ones. I was thinking about some classic thin white walls, like a baby moon hubcap style. I mean, I tried a bunch of different ones, and I ended up settling on the I call them the Anson Sprints. They're like slotted aluminums. They're pretty common on, I believe the gassers use them, mainly the 55. So it's bigger in the back as far as a wider tire, and then like a 50 series and a 70 series tires. Essentially, you can kind of see there. The unfortunate issue is, of course, the wheels don't fit as usual. But I hacked those out with a Dremel tool to make them fit just a little bit on each end where the wheel well opening is, and it worked out fine. The other issue, of course, would be, having to use axle tubes. But so I'm kind of thinking about how I'm going to cut the roof. What am I going to do? How am I going to blend in a back part to make it a hearse? Because obviously it's pretty much like a windowless station wagon, I guess, if you really want to get down to it. And in the end, I don't really go with the traditional style hearse as far as its application. So let's put it that way. So I'm kind of contemplating life's great mysteries there. So finally, once I have an idea that I think might work, I don't hesitate. I just start cutting. Because if you think about it too long, you'll end up second guessing yourself to no end. So here I cut the trunk out. And what that does is that gives me a decent area to work with as far as extending the roof line. I almost thought I could use the trunk that I cut off, but the curvature of the trunk was just too much, so I could not. So speaking of axle tubes, I'm using some K&S 1/16 brass tubing, which I believe is number 5125. Excuse me. Overall, I've been using this for forever. Works really good. A little time consuming. Obviously, you can't, just pop the wheels in. You have to put some thought into it, and you've got to groove out the slot that it goes into, and you got to worry about ride height and all that other stuff. But in the end, I kind of put it on where I want. I mark it, and then if you've seen any of my videos, I usually cut it with a cutoff disc, and then I'll take and notch out 2 spots on it to allocate for where glue can go in. I cut the axle in half. And again, make sure you clean out the holes, and that'll allow your Hot Wheels axle to fit right in once you cut it in half. So I spared you that in any video. I show it on just about every video, so I'm not going to waste my time or your time on that this time. But once I've pretty much got everything set, and I got my channels all set, which you have to make a little bit wider because axle tubes are, twice the diameter, almost 3 times the diameter of the actual Hot Wheels axle. I kind of set it up on a bottle in this particular case, just so I can make sure everything's level and it's sitting right, and I can double check everything. And it's not sitting on the wheels, obviously. So you could also flip it upside down. That's another way to do it. And like if you were building a drag race car, for 3D bot maker or something like that, you'd flip it over, and that way you'll keep your axles aligned. But this is another way to do it, and just helps you get it in there, glue it down, and you don't have to worry about it, moving. And if you wanted to, you can actually pick it up with the bottle and kind of eyeball it to make sure that everything's parallel and perfect. So there it is. It's a good roller. The other thing with axle tubes is if there's any kind of hold down, like on that interior, you have two C-notches that actually would hold, even though it's clipped in, it would hold the axle down, and it kind of sits over where the axle goes. With an axle tube being a bigger diameter, obviously, if you're going to, use the same interior, then you have to kind of clean it out and enlarge it. That's kind of what I'm doing there. I'm doing it on both sides, but I'm going to end up cutting off the back anyways, because it's a hearse, so I need to modify the back a little bit. So I'm going to pretty much cut it off at the rear seat, or after the rear seat. I'm going to keep the rear seat so you can have more people in it, because it's a hearse and you want lots of people in your hearse. But anyways, so that's right there is where I realized I got to cut the back off anyways. So there's a little package tray. I'm pretty much cutting it off maybe 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the rear seat, but leaving about 1/8 of an inch of the package tray itself. For future, I'm thinking I might have to glue something to it, which I end up doing. So it gave me a surface to glue. So after it comes out of the citrus strip, now it's just a matter of cleaning the paint, or I'm sorry, remaining paint off, which there isn't usually any paint. Sometimes there's some residue from the citrus strip, or there might be a few pieces here and there. Cars that have a lot of body lines or doors, in this case, multiple hood lines, deck lids, stuff like that, you want to make sure you clean in there really good, because paint will not adhere to citrus strip. So here I broke out the styrene, which is, I believe, I want to say it's 1/16, but it might be a little bit thicker. I think it actually uses millimeters. But I made the two side pieces. I'm just kind of piecing it together. And then what I'm going to end up doing is just filing and smoothing it out. And once I've applied my glue, now I can add, this is actually automotive glazing putty. And I'm just going to help pretty much seal the seals. I guess if it's a double word there, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But I'm just kind of trying to make it as smooth as I can. I mean, you're dealing on a really small scale, so it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I'm just going to, I think I end up putting it on like twice. I put it on, I sand it down, put it on, sand it down. And it's going to have like a little bit, almost like it's a camper shell. So it's got a little bit of a dip as the roof line starts to taper down towards the back of the car, and then it goes up a little bit where the styrene is, almost like it was like a truck cap. So you can see a little bit of it there after I primed it. And I'm just going to hit it with some Chaos Black from Citadel. I use this on everything. It's great for chassis. It's a matte black, or I guess I say matte. It's more of a semi-gloss finish, I guess you could say, or semi-matte, I don't know. But it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. And after I was going to do this, then I was going to hit it with clear coat. And I'm like, man, that matte, or semi-gloss, whatever you want to call it, looks really, really good when it dried. So I decided to keep it. But to add something to it, I broke out my Warhammer decals that came on the Orc Boys kit, I think it was. And I'm just adding some decals, because this really, even though it's a Hearse, it's a converted Hearse. So in other words, it's something, my vision anyways, is that something somebody bought and then just made it cooler by adding rims, well, in this case decals, but that's kind of what I was after. So what else would be cool? Surfboards. I bought these for a beach bomb from the Redline shop, and I'm like, you know what? I can sacrifice it for the greater good, because ain't nothing cooler than a couple surfboards sticking out of the back of a Hearse. So I'm gonna hit those with the same thing. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. So yeah, I mean, here I added a piece on the end. I painted it white because it was like an off-white. I painted the front and back all black and then clear coated, heavy clear, so it had a little bit of shine to it. And that's pretty much what the body looked like. And of course, I added some decals to match on the surfboards. So, if you recall, that's what I started with, and this is what I ended up with. I think it came out pretty killer, and I'm glad Paul issued this challenge. Just one of those things that I was like, yeah, let's do this. It looks really cool. So I'm glad he did. I hope you guys like it. Make sure you check out his video. I'll have it linked down below, and I will catch you on the next one.